Alright, what's happening, y'all, man? It is ugly. This your boy Rico from Street Scores, and disaster has definitely struck Washington. Almost worst case scenario in several situations. Most notably, Jonathan Allen and others have been placed on the COVID-19 list. You already know we're going to dive into exactly who caught COVID-19 and also who do we even have left on the team to go down this last little gauntlet against the rest of the NFC East. Remember, we played the Eagles this week in Philadelphia, then we played the Cowboys in Dallas, then we play the Eagles in Maryland, and then we have to play the Giants. And we have to take a look at who do we even have left on the team to go against these guys? Because even just beyond COVID, we also have a myriad of injuries that have been suffered ever since our head athletic trainer got caught up by the feds. So we are in a very ugly situation as far as trying to make this playoff push. I mean, it was a real obtainable goal at a certain point, but it's going to be really hard to overcome these injuries in this COVID-19 situation we have to get enough wins to still make it. I mean, we are currently a 7th seed right now in the NFC playoffs. Like, if the playoffs were to start this weekend, we would be in it. But can we stay afloat with all of these other teams lurking? I mean, we have the same record as several other teams, but we just have the tiebreaker over them. So we're probably one L away from not being able to recover, but who knows? We're going to dive into all of that, of course. And then also the Washington football team made some roster moves. And then also very important, is Taylor Heinicke still the starting QB moving forward? Is he even healthy enough to be the starting QB moving forward? And then lastly, some bad news in Logan Thomas's case. And before we dive into all of that, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell next to the subscription button so you get a notification immediately and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Also, make sure you check out the rest of the channel. All of my videos are organized in playlists. I even have a comedy playlist for all of my funny videos. Make sure you go check out my Washington football team loss to the Cowboys review, and I'm gonna keep y'all updated on everything that's going on, especially these injuries and this COVID-19 situation throughout this week and going forward all the way through the offseason. So stay tuned. Without further ado, let's get it. All right, so first of all, it all started with the announcement that Washington football team all-pro potentially, I think he's going to end up possibly being an all-pro this year, at the very least Pro Bowl, defensive tackle Jonathan Allen tested positive for COVID-19 and could even possibly miss this Sunday's game against the Eagles. And he's easily been our best defender. It's between him and Cameron Curl, but I think it's obvious that it's been Jonathan Allen, especially this year, because again, he's been playing at an all-pro level. And it's actually really interesting too, just to go a little off topic. It's kind of crazy because this is the guy we expected him to be when we drafted him, but then he started off so slow his first couple of years. You could see potential, you saw moments, but it's kind of crazy. Like when you think about all of those Alabama defensive linemen with Jonathan Allen, and then we were expecting him to be like the best defensive lineman in football, it would probably be him and Aaron Donald neck and neck coming out of the draft. That's how dominant he was in college. And then he started off so slow, so then everybody moved on to the next Alabama defensive lineman. You had Daron Payne, who we ended up getting as well, and then we saw his potential. And then you also saw Quinnen Williams come out, and then now when you look back, Quinnen Williams is, all right, straight. Daron Payne has his moments, but right now Jonathan Allen is the best defensive lineman out of that set group of Alabama defensive linemen to come out for consecutive years. It's kind of crazy when you look back at it, but this is kind of what we expected from the jump. Expectations just dampened down a little bit because he had such a slow start to his career, and we should never have even gotten him because it was just the arthritis scares. I believe it was like supposedly in his shoulders or something. That's the only reason we got him in the first place. It's the only reason he made it out of like the top 5 in the NFL draft. So that's just a crazy story in itself. But we're going to be without him and others moving forward, because not only was Jonathan Allen placed on the COVID-19 list, but linebacker David Mayo was as well. And he actually played some on defense because of all of the injuries that we have to the linebacker group. Remember, John Bostic's been on IR since the Falcons game, and then Khalid Hudson finally started playing, but then now he's out for a couple of weeks. So we've had to actually play David Mayo in real 11 versus 11 NFL regular season game situations because he's mostly just a special teams guy. But with how far we're reaching into our depth to just get guys on the field on Sundays, he's like an actual defensive player now. So that matters that he's gone now. Week 1, you see David Mayo go on the COVID-19 list. We don't even really think about it. But right now, like, we just need bodies. So that even hurts us. And then defensive end William Bradley King and tight end Tamarick Hemingway, who were on the practice squad, also got put on the COVID-19 reserve list. And it's so crazy because that is now 9 Washington players placed on the COVID-19 list within the last 7 days. And it began with Montez Sweat with his positive test last week. And you could tell he's not vaccinated because the fact that he had to be out a minimum of 10 days just lets you know what situation he has going on. Doesn't matter how many negative tests he posts since he was unvaccinated, there was no way he was going to play against the Cowboys this past Sunday. But he may return against the Eagles. We'll see. Who knows? But again, we went from 0 guys on COVID this time last week to 9 super quick. We now have defensive tackle Jonathan Allen, defensive end Montez Sweat, defensive end James Smith-Williams, defensive end Casey Toohill, defensive end William Bradley King, linebackers Khaleke Hudson and David Mayo, cornerback Darryl Roberts, and tight end Tamarick Hemingway, all on the COVID-19 list. Again, all of those cases within the past 7 days. We went from 0 to 9 quick. And most of those guys are defensive linemen, but at the same time, you have some guys in the tight end group, you have a guy in the cornerback group, you have some guys in the linebacker group, and that's what scares me because it's not being held to one room. Because, you know, when in doubt, when you're having your team meetings inside buildings, inside of a confined space, a room, and then when you're doing individual drills and practice and stuff like that, you typically break off into your position groups. So the fact that this is spreading amongst different position groups scares me because this can't just be isolated to one group. So now defensive linemen have it, all of the coaches that are in close contact with all of those guys are at potential risk. The linebackers have it, 2 of them do. So now all of the linebacker coaches, anybody with close contact to them, are in danger. Then you have 1 cornerback, 1 tight end. So this is definitely getting scary because our cornerback group is actually one of our healthier groups. And just imagine if Darryl Roberts somehow spreads the COVID on to like Kendall Fuller, William Jackson, Benjamin St-Juste, Danny Johnson. That is doomsday scenario. Now I'm surprised we even have a cornerback on the COVID-19 list because they can't catch interceptions, but they can catch COVID. Linebackers and corners. The only one on our team that makes catching interceptions look even relatively easy is Landon Collins. But this is crazy because it all started with Montez Sweat. And it's like, is he the one that infected the team? Like, I don't want to put any blame on him, but this is just wow. What was the catalyst for all of this? Did it start with one person and spread to everybody else? Or did all of those guys just somehow at the same time coincidentally just catch COVID from different situations, different places, different people? Who knows, man? We'll probably never find that stuff out, but it's really crazy that all of this is even going on. And then on top of all of that, a tier 3 staffer with the Washington football team tested positive for the Omicron variant of COVID-19. This is the first known case of that variant in the entire NFL. So remember, last year we were the best team at avoiding COVID. We had the least cases in the NFL. Now, not only do we probably have the most players on the COVID-19 list, but we're also the first Omicron case in the NFL. This is crazy. And just to let you know, a tier 3 NFL personnel or staffer is a certain operational personnel, in-house media and broadcast personnel, transportation providers, and workers who perform facility, stadium, or event services, but are not allowed to be in close contact with players and tier 1 people. And then even just beyond that, yesterday was just chaos because 37 players league-wide tested positive for the COVID-19 virus. 36 players were placed on teams' COVID-19 reserve list, and then 1 positive test came in after that. So 37 guys, I believe 11 of them total were practice squad players. Remember, out of those 11 practice squad players, we had 2 of them, and out of the 37 players total, we had 4. So it's kind of a league-wide issue right now, but I believe we're the ones that got hit the hardest. Again, we even had a staffer test positive for Omicron, and that's the first Omicron case amongst anybody in the NFL. Personnel, coaches, front office, players, anything. So I know the NFL is about to do whatever they got to do to nip that in the bud. I mean, it's about to look like Monsters Inc. when all the guys in the yellow suits come out and they put that little bowl over the thing and blow it up like they did that little sock. Buddy with Omicron about to get a flashbang thrown through his window in the middle of the night, but he better be careful. NFL not about to play about that. But also, the 36 players that went on the COVID-19 list yesterday because of positive test was the highest number since that list was created in 2020. So this is the worst situation the NFL has ever been since COVID-19 has even been a thing. So this is dire. This is scary. I don't even know how the Rams won yesterday with Jalen Ramsey and several important starters out against the Cardinals, and the Cardinals got Kyler Murray back. I was watching that game like, what is going on? How are we in this situation? Going into that game, I thought the Cardinals were going to win by like 20 plus. And now because of all of this going on, of course, the NFL, like I said, is not going to play about it. The NFL sent a memo to teams requiring Tier 1 and Tier 2 staff to receive vaccine boosters by December 27th. So they have known 14 days in advance before the deadline. 13 days today, because this was reported yesterday. And the NFL's new vaccine booster requirement does not apply to players, but again, it does apply to Tier 1 and Tier 2 staffers, which includes coaches who were already previously required to be vaccinated. Remember, players were never required to be vaccinated, but you know, with the way the rules are set up, it's like a halfway requirement, as in Montez Sweat's case, where if you're not vaccinated and you just have one positive test, 10 days minimum, you out. Doesn't matter if you have COVID or not. But now, I mean, we gotta take a look at our situation, man. This is crazy, because who do we even have left? I mean, technically, Ryan Fitzpatrick was supposed to be our starting quarterback. He's been out. J.D. McKissick has been out for the past couple of weeks with a concussion scare. Who knows if he's going to even be ready to go against the Eagles? And then Antonio Gibson out here fumbling. Then your star receiver, Terry McLaurin, because of that severe underthrow by Taylor Heinicke, now has a concussion, and he may not play against the Eagles. And it's crazy, too, because we've had injuries in the receiver group all throughout the year, and we haven't truly seen Curtis Samuel that much yet. Barely even played last week. Actually played less against Dallas than he did the previous 2 weeks, which scares me. To me, Curtis Samuel just isn't on the team. Like, if you plan on drafting a wide receiver, do it. Don't make any decisions around Curtis Samuel potentially coming back at this point. But even beyond all of that, it's actually crazy. If Terry McLaurin can play against the Eagles, our receiving group is probably still one of our healthiest groups on the entire roster. And we barely seen Curtis Samuel or De'Ami Brown this season. But again, most importantly, we may not have our star receiver. And then we're going to talk about Logan Thomas later, but he's been placed on IR. Sammis Reyes is now in concussion protocol. Tamarick Hemingway is on the COVID-19 list. So we literally just have John Bates and Ricky Seals-Jones on the roster. That's it. That's our 2 tight ends, period, right now. Especially if Sammis Reyes can't go against the Eagles. And then Charles Leno, who hasn't missed a game in several seasons in a row. He has to be the player with the most consecutive starts in the NFL right now. At least one of the tops, because he hasn't missed a start in several years, dating all the way back to his Chicago Bears days. And now he's even hurt. And then Eric Flowers is always a little banged up. But now, who's playing center? Chase Roulier has been on IR for weeks now, and we've been shuffling between 4 centers throughout this season, especially the past few weeks. But now your backup center, Tyler Larson, may return against the Eagles, but he's hurt as well. Then Wes Schweitzer, your second string guard, your third string center, who's had to start at center a couple of games this year, was placed on IR a few days ago. And so now we may be relying on our second string and fourth string centers to carry us through the rest of this season and hopefully the playoffs, if we can even make it. And then Brandon Sheriff, of course, is always playing banged up. Brandon Sheriff is never 100% healthy. And so his backup now with Wes Schweitzer on IR is Sadiq Charles. Sadiq Charles had to come in and play left tackle for us when Charles Leno got hurt, because Cornelius Lucas, who's supposed to be our backup right tackle, is starting at right tackle because our starting right tackle, Samuel Cosme, has been on IR for weeks now. This is crazy. This is just the offense. Then on defense, James Smith-Williams on the COVID-19 list will not play against the Eagles. Of course, Chase Young is on IR. Montez Sweat was out with a broken jaw for weeks. Then he caught COVID, so he missed the Dallas game. Will he even play against the Eagles? Jalen Jelks is on IR. Casey Toohill and Jonathan Allen are also on COVID-19 lists. So our starting defensive line going into this Eagles game, and Montez Sweat can't play, may be Bunmi Rutimi or Daniel Wise starting on one side, and maybe Shaka Toney starting on the other, with Deron Payne and Matt Ioannidis and Tim Settle carrying the weight of the interior defensive line. And then the linebackers, Jordan Kunaszyk, who's a backup, is hurt. David Mayo, who's a backup, is on COVID-19. Again, John Bostic has been on IR for forever. Khaleke Hudson was dealing with an injury for the past couple of weeks. Now he's on the COVID-19 list. So we're left with Cole Holcomb, Jamin Davis, Landon Collins, a banged up Jordan Kunaszyk, and Camilo Eifer, whoever that is. And then again, our DB room is one of our healthiest. Remember, Torrey McTyer is on the IR. Benjamin St. Juste went to IR. Didn't even notice that. And Daryl Roberts is out on the COVID-19 list, which leaves us with Kendall Fuller and William Jackson as your starting outside corners, which isn't bad. Cameron Curl and Bobby McCain as your starting safeties, technically. And then we still have quite a bit of depth there with, technically Trey Apke, Danny Johnson starting in the slot, Corn Elder. Again, that's not ideal, but that's better than what we got going on for most of these position groups. Again, our receiving group and our DB group right now is our best hope. And don't even get me started on kicker. I mean, we're on our 4th kicker already. We finally found something in Joey Sly, and then he gets hurt. He's on IR. So now we're on our fourth kicker and hoping that Brian Johnson can carry us into the playoffs. And so far, he looks good. I mean, the one kick he's missed was blocked, and it wasn't even like he kicked it short like Chris Blewett or kicked it into the back of an offensive lineman. Somebody came off the edge and blocked it, so I'm not going to fault him for that on that extra point. And Ron Rivera has even addressed this in the press conference yesterday. He said that Washington has embraced the next man up mentality with a bevy of injuries. And Rivera has said that he hasn't necessarily seen a drop-off in ability, but there's definitely a drop-off in experience, and it has been clear. And also, shouts out to Washington Realm for pointing this out, but there has been a player carted off of FedEx Field at all 7 games this season. And we were all happy about the changes on FedEx Field, but you have Ryan Fitzpatrick week 1, which really isn't the field's fault. Then week 2, you have Nick Gates. Week 5, Taysom Hill. Week 6, Jordy Fortson. Week 10, Vita Vea and Chase Young. Week 12, JD McKissick. And week 14, Tyler Larson. At this point, the field must be cursed because they made a lot of good changes to the field. And again, some of those weren't even like the field's fault, but guys just get carted off. I really hope we can break that curse moving forward, but it's been bad this season. And then also, before we move on to Taylor Heinicke, Washington has claimed offensive lineman Jamil Douglas off of Buffalo's waivers to add some interior depth because he plays both center and guard. So we'll see how that goes. But moving on, this Taylor Heinicke situation is interesting. Will he be the starter moving forward? And Ron Rivera addressed in a press conference yesterday that, yeah, Taylor Heinicke will start in Philly if he's healthy enough to do so. There is no QB controversy in DC, but at the same time, that's if he's healthy enough. But Ron Rivera said that Taylor Heinicke is a little sore today and is being monitored, but it sounds like he's straight to go and should be starting against the Eagles. And then Charles Leno also should be fine, so that's a positive update. But Tyler Larson is getting an MRI to see what his situation is like. Is it worse than what we think? Remember, he got carted off. And McLaurin is definitely in concussion protocol, so he's at a huge risk of not playing against the Eagles this week. And then lastly, Logan Thomas. Sad news is further tests on Washington tight end Logan Thomas, should have been a Pro Bowler this year, have revealed that his knee did in fact suffer a torn ACL, despite an earlier belief to the contrary. We went from thinking he suffered a torn ACL to some positive news claiming that he may not have torn an ACL, and then now it has been confirmed that he has. And he was placed on season-ending IR on December 8th. So he is expected to undergo surgery this week and return in time for the 2022 season. Hopefully he'll be back ready for week 1. Ideal, like best case scenario, he's even ready for training camp. We'll see though. It's still up there with Yannick Ngakoue for that one though. That was definitely a dirty play, unnecessary. That was crazy. How you gonna do that to a fellow Maryland, Virginia brethren, bro? That's crazy. That injury was just so unavoidable. It was crazy. I mean, it wasn't even the direction of the play. And like, why are you as a defender cut blocking? You're the defender. Go make a play. It's that whole situation is just crazy. That's y'all boy though. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please like this video if you liked it, if you learned anything. And as always, man, I appreciate all of the support, man. Big time. Shouts out to everybody that pulls up to the streams and donates, man. I really appreciate y'all. It's a huge help. Also, shouts out to all of my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors, whose name you see scrolled on the screen right now, man. I really appreciate y'all. I'll catch y'all later. I'm out.